Very warm welcome to Amish 5858. I am Amir. Following are the latest news headlines which have been reported by American, European, Canadian, Asian, African, and Australian news channels and all other news agencies. So please, let's go to the news.
Tonight, the Trump administration and Harvard going toe-to-toe. The $2 billion funding fight. The administration accusing the school of ignoring anti-Semitism on campus. Harvard pushing back. President Trump's new threat tonight, and the rare comments from former President Obama. Terrifying moments at a Dallas high school. Multiple kids injured. Teachers locking doors, hiding with students as they heard gunshots. The gunman now on the loose. Our team is there. A growing deportation clash. That Maryland man whose family says he was wrongfully deported to that maximum security prison in El Salvador. Now, a federal judge demanding to know what steps the Trump administration has taken to bring him back. This just in, new details and body cam footage from inside the home of Gene Hackman after the actor and his wife were found dead. We'll tell you what investigators found in Hackman's wife's internet search history. Also tonight, the new drone hunters. You'll see the FAA's expanding drone detection technology, how they're meant to help with aviation safety, plus the new CDC report on autism. 1 in 31 kids diagnosed. HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. calling it an epidemic. But we speak with a doctor who disagrees. And the good news tonight, talk about a lending hand. We'll introduce you to an incredible community stepping up for their beloved bookstore. This is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt. Welcome to university.
Apply to study abroad with the Duolingo English test. From registration to education, the DET offers a simplified process to certify your English proficiency and apply to over 5,500 institutions worldwide.
This is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt. Hey, good evening. I'm Tom Yamas, in for Lester. Tonight, the Trump administration is taking on one of the most powerful institutions in the world, Harvard. The president today further threatening the school's financial foundations after the Department of Education put a freeze on more than $2 billion worth of federal funding. All of it a reaction to the university's refusal to comply with a list of wide-ranging demands on DEI, leadership, governance, and more. The White House saying Harvard didn't do enough to address anti-Semitism on campus, but the university tonight is pushing back, saying the Trump administration is violating their First Amendment rights. And now, former President Obama is getting involved. It's the most high-profile school to stand up to the administration so far. Stephanie Goss starts us off.
Tonight, it's an all-out battle between Harvard University and the Trump administration. The White House accusing the school of not addressing anti-Semitism on campus.
We unfortunately saw that illegal discrimination take place on the campus of Harvard. There are countless examples to prove it.
The Department of Education freezing more than $2 billion in federal money after Harvard refused to accept a long list of demands taking aim at its culture and curriculum. The school's defiance being embraced by some on campus.
I think it was so important because this attack on Harvard wasn't just an attack on Harvard, it's an attack on higher education, and in that sense, it's an attack on a pillar of American civil society.
Today, President Trump also threatening to revoke the university's tax-exempt status, accusing the school of pushing political, ideological, and terrorist-inspired sickness. Harvard University's president says the school has taken steps to address anti-Semitism on campus and calls the federal government's tactics a violation of the school's.
Tonight, breaking news as we come on the air, what played out a short time ago, the White House standoff over that wrongly deported immigrant sent to that notorious prison in El Salvador. Also tonight, the man in a gas mask armed with pepper spray storming into a courthouse in the Northeast. And a passenger jet, the flames you'll see shooting from the engine in the air after what they call a possible rapid strike. First tonight, the heated showdown between the White House and the courts over a mistakenly deported husband and father taken to that notorious prison in El Salvador. Following the Supreme Court's unanimous 9-0 ruling to facilitate his return, he's still not back. And tonight, a federal judge scolding the Trump administration, saying it has done nothing to facilitate his return. The images coming in tonight, police racing to the scene of a high school shooting in Dallas. Dozens of students seen running from the school. The United Airlines flight where flames spotted shooting from an engine just after takeoff. The pilot reporting a possible rabbit strike. Did a rabbit crawl into the engine right before takeoff? The chilling video showing a man wearing a gas mask storming into a courthouse. The news late today, a top aide to Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth placed on leave, escorted from the Pentagon amid a leak investigation. Martha Raddatz standing by what she's learned. Tonight, the battle escalating between President Trump and Harvard. Harvard rejecting the president's demand, saying no government, regardless of party, should dictate what private universities can teach and do. Tonight, the president now freezing more than $2 billion in federal funding. Tonight, the new CDC report on the autism rate here in the U.S., 1 in 31 children in America, and what's driving this. The $5 billion jewelry store heist, the hole in the wall, how they got in. Look at this tonight. More than 30 endangered right whales spotted off Cape Cod, one of them struggling in the water. Also tonight here, remembering a popular game show host and what the elephants did during the California earthquake, the circle they formed, and why they did it. You'll see it right here. From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World.
Let's bring in Republican Louisiana Senator John Kennedy. He serves on several committees, including the Judiciary Committee. Sir, thank you so much for joining us. I want to immediately get your thoughts on this, as we've got this brand new sound from President Trump, who is sitting down with Rachel Campos Duffy at 4 o'clock Eastern time on the Fox Spanish channel, and he said this on that. Listen.
Could we use it for violent criminals, our own violent criminals?
I call them homegrown criminals.
Yes.
I mean, the
homegrowns.
the ones that grew up and something went wrong and they hit people over the head with a baseball bat. We have and push people into subways just before the train gets there, like you see happening sometimes. We are looking into it and we want to do it. I would love to do that.
Well, Senator Kennedy, you are a smart legal mind. Do you have any problem with that?
No, none. I think the president's right. If you're in our country illegally, you're a criminal. Illegal immigration is illegal, duh. And I think there are plenty of laws which President Biden ignored that allow us to deport you. I mean, to me, it's just straightforward. And people who oppose that approach, it seems to me, are not being intellectually honest. They just ought to go ahead and admit they support open borders.
Senator, I want to get your reaction to this federal judge in Boston, her ruling on this controversial mass parole program here. Call for number 2. These are the numbers. So more than 500,000 migrants from these 4 countries were flown into the U.S. under President Biden. He essentially used his executive authority, waved the magic wand, and allowed all these people to come into the country. Now, President Trump comes into office. He tries to use that exact same executive authority to take their parole grants away, and a judge is saying no. Your thoughts?
Well, the judge is wrong. He or she obviously doesn't know a law book from a J. Crew catalog. I believe this judge issued a national injunction. In my judgment, those are illegal. A national injunction is when 2 parties go to court, plaintiff and defendant, and the federal judge issues a ruling, but it doesn't just apply to those 2 parties in court, it applies to the whole country. Now, there's no basis in statutory law for that. There's no basis in Supreme Court precedent for that. There's no basis in English common law for that, on which our justice system is based. The Supreme Court could fix it, and I hope it does quickly. We have a bill in Congress proposed in the Senate by Senator Grassley to make it very clear that national injunctions are an abuse of authority. It's a fairly new phenomenon. Federal judges didn't do this for most of the 20th century. There are only 27 national injunctions. But it started in the 21st century. 67% of the national injunctions that have been issued against President Trump, and none of the judges have explained why all of a sudden they got up one morning and ate their judge's breakfast and went to the courthouse and started using national injunctions on which there's no basis, with respect to which there's no basis on Article 3 of the Constitution.
Okay, so Senator, could I circle back there?
On this Tuesday night, Honda puts it in park. The automaker says it's keeping production and thousands of jobs at a Canadian plant, denying reports to the contrary. The lingering threats from U.S. tariffs.
Donald Trump has paralyzed the auto industry.
Oil outlook, what's fueling the forecast that gas prices will plummet. Northern exposure, how domestic tourism is expected to soar.
There is a strong propensity to buy Canadian.
And how the trade war can keep some Americans away from Canada. Plus, the ultimate Montreal Canadiens man cave.
I have a lot more that's not on display.
How this superfan's Habs pride also has a purpose.
International with Donna Friesen.
France 24 News programs. Chinua Sondu, one of the 200 France 24 correspondents around the world.
Hello and a warm welcome. If you're just joining us, you're watching Daybreak here on France 24. These are the headlines. Criticising the Trump administration for taking a hatchet to Social Security, former President Joe Biden makes his first foray back into the public arena since he left office, saying that the level of destruction brought to the United States since January has been breathtaking. France expels 12 Algerian officials and recalls its ambassador from Algeria, Paris responding in kind to Algeria's decision to send French diplomats packing. Tensions between the two countries on the rise over a series of issues from history to migration. And Hamas says that due to Israeli strikes, it has lost contact with the unit that was guarding one of the remaining hostages, a 21-year-old Israeli-American soldier who was said to be a key to Israel's proposal for another truce. Meanwhile, another bombing of a hospital in Gaza left one medic dead and a number of patients injured. Saying that the Trump administration has taken a hatchet to Social Security, former U.S. President Joe Biden made a brief return to the national stage Tuesday, speaking his speech on social. And imposed tighter ID checks on recipients of a quick. However, it's coming up on the day. It's all eyes on the economy. The latest inflation figures are out in an hour. What it means to be a woman. The UK's highest court will announce a ruling this morning. It's Wednesday, April the 16th. Economists expect inflation to fall this morning. We'll find out if they're right at 7 o'clock. The family of a man who killed someone after escaping from a mental health unit says he was failed by the NHS. More than 1,000 miles of roadworks will be lifted to help the Great Easter Getaway. In sport, Aston Villa nearly pull off a stunning comeback against Paris Saint-Germain before going out of the Champions League on a dramatic night at Villa Park. And tennis player Harriet Dart apologises for saying that her French opponent should wear deodorant. Hello, a very good morning, and we're waiting on a couple of big stories this morning. We're expecting a ruling from the UK's highest court later this morning on the legal definition of what makes a woman. But first, the latest inflation figures are out in just under an hour. Mari is here with me now, and the government will be watching economic figures like this really closely, won't they?
Absolutely. We know that the Bank of England's target to get inflation is 2%, and currently it is above that, and it is expected to stay at 8 o'clock.
Today, Labour accuses Peter Dutton of making false statements while seeking political gain from a report that Russia asked for access to an Indonesian military base.
This is an extraordinary thing for a man who wants to be the Prime Minister to do.
People talk a big game, but I don't think she's a Foreign Minister who's on top of her brief.
Charged with the murder of his wife after a house fire west of Brisbane. Also ahead, rents continue to rise, and it may be the quick sell-off of investment properties that's partly to blame. And record floodwaters in South Australia's outback recede ahead of more possible river surges. Hello and welcome to ABC News. I'm Catherine Robinson.
Labour is ramping up attacks on the opposition leader Peter Dutton, accusing him of recklessness and endangering Australia's ties with Indonesia in his response to the story of Russia's attempts to base military aircraft in Papua province. The government says Indonesia has given them guarantees no Russian planes will be permitted to be based in its territory, but won't say if Russia had ever made such a request. Foreign Affairs reporter Stephen Jurgens joins us now. And Stephen, what did the opposition leader say yesterday? And what's the...
It's 12 p.m. in Singapore and Hong Kong, 9:30 in New Delhi and 11 o'clock in Jakarta. I'm Paul Suk. At this hour, China's economy grew at a faster pace than expected in the first 3 months of this year, but officials warn of a deteriorating outlook amid rising trade tensions globally. The Trump administration says it is up to China, not the United States, to come to the negotiating table on trade, as both countries stand firm on tit-for-tat tariffs. Chinese President Xi Jinping meets Malaysia's King and Prime Minister as part of a 3-day state visit, aiming to boost political and economic ties amid the rising trade tensions. Mr. Xi is expected to push for a China-ASEAN free trade deal. China's economy expanded at a faster than expected pace at the start of the year, but is facing a bumpy road ahead due to America's hefty tariffs. GDP expanded 5.4% in the first quarter on year, better than the Bloomberg forecast. For the month of March, retail sales gained 5.9%, the highest in more than a year, and largely beating
Africa News. The news. France said Tuesday it was expelling 12 Algerian diplomatic officials a day after Algeria announced the expulsion of the same number of French officials in escalating tensions between the two countries. Paris also said it was recalling its ambassador to Algiers. Algeria said Monday that its expulsion of 12 French officials was over the arrest of an Algerian consular official by French authorities in a kidnapping case, but relations between the two sides have been declining since last summer. That's when France shifted its position to support Morocco's claim over Western Sahara, a stance which goes against Algeria's, which backs self-rule for the territory. A statement from the French president said the expulsion was a symmetrical response to Algeria's actions. The latest surge in hostility followed a brief easing of tensions about 2 weeks ago, when French President Emmanuel Macron called his Algerian counterpart Abdelmadjid together.
Human Rights Watch is calling on the international community to condemn South Sudan's alleged use of incendiary weapons amid escalating violence in the Upper Nile state. Satellite images show significant damage to civilian infrastructure following government strikes. The group warned that the government's airstrikes have devastated civilian areas, despite international law prohibiting such weapons in populated zones.
Conventional weapons, it's very clear that it prohibits the use of airdrop weapons that are designed to set fire or even burn people, especially in areas where civilians are concentrated, which is what we're seeing in, Matian, Longachoka, and Nasser. And so South Sudan is not a party to this protocol. But the fact that it is using these weapons in this kind of manner highlights why the enforcement of this convention, these laws, should be strengthened.
Human Rights Watch also urged the UN peacekeeping mission to establish bases in high-risk areas, warning that without security guarantees, peacekeepers cannot operate effectively.
We also are calling on the United Nations peacekeeping mission in South Sudan to deploy in these areas that have been affected by the violence and other areas of high risk. But for the UN to be able to deploy, they need security and safety guarantees that their peacekeepers can actually go into these areas. We're asking for temporary operating bases to be established in both parts of eastern and western Upper Nile, especially because the tensions in these areas are continuing to grow.
The main opposition, led by Vice President Riek Machar, currently under house arrest, has demanded an international probe into rights abuses. Fighting between government forces and the White Army, as such, says March, threatening the fragile 2018 peace deal.
China's largest and oldest trade fair opened to bustling crowds and 31,000 participating companies on Tuesday. But this year, businesses promoting their products at Canton Trade Fair, taking place in southern China, are bracing for the impact of the ongoing trade war between the United States and China. The whole world can be our market and is waiting for us to explore, but there are priorities. We need to stay strong and have the confidence to open more overseas markets to make Guangdong goods reach the globe. While many exporters at the trade fair were optimistic about alternative markets, some were feeling the effects of the new tariffs imposed by Washington on Chinese goods earlier this month. We will be influenced by the trade war in the short term, but by taking measures such as opening the market in other countries, we can offset part of this impact. US President Donald Trump hit most of the world's countries with sweeping tariffs on the products they export to the US in early April. China reciprocated by raising its own tariffs on US products, leading to an escalating trade war between the two countries.
Meta chief Mark Zuckerberg was in a Washington courtroom Monday for a historic antitrust trial that could force his company to break off Instagram and WhatsApp. In opening statements, an attorney for the Federal Trade Commission accused Meta of using its influence to generate enormous profits as consumer satisfaction has dropped. He said Meta sought to become a monopoly by buying WhatsApp and Instagram because it deemed the two startups a threat to its dominance. Zuckerberg and other Meta witnesses will testify during the trial. The trial is the first big test of Trump's Federal Trade Commission's ability to challenge big tech. The lawsuit was filed against Meta, then called Facebook, in 2020 during Trump's first term.
News, great talking. This is the nightmare for the Conservatives. Again, down to earth. It's not just nothing where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers. They'll get the book thrown at them. They catch me, Martin Dobney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Okwir, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, you didn't say that, Dave. I was so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Please join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning, you're watching GB News Breakfast, and our main news this morning, small boat crossings have hit a record high.
Well, a damning development for Keir Starmer's Smash the Gangs pledge, as provisional figures show that around 700 migrants arrived on our shores yesterday, and that is constantly going up day by day over the weekend.
Yes, this surpassed the previous one-day record, which begs the question, has the government lost control of our borders?
D-Day veterans' betrayal. Anger erupts as the government refuses to pay travel costs for war heroes to travel to Normandy.
And what is a woman? The Supreme Court is set to deliver its verdict today on how a woman should be defined in law. The Prime Minister previously struggled with the definition.
Woman can have a penis. They cannot, but I don't think we can conduct this debate with, sorry about that. No, it's just...
Your stay in the Celebrity Big Brother house is over. Please say your goodbyes.
Drama in the Big Brother house. Trisha Goddard evicted following her controversial racism spat with former MP Michael Fabricant. France opponent wearing prints and was a bit weak.
Thank you very much for giving time to Amir Shackle 5858. I am Amir Shackle. Have a good life. Bye-bye.